you're brought up to date on the rules. That is Barrington Francis from Toronto. Lived in Montreal for a little while. He's hoping to make good in what he sees as a very big fight, even though it is a non-title fight. And that is Hector Acero Sanchez, the champion. You saw him win his title against Tracy Harris Patterson here on ESPN. It was really an exciting evening, and the issue was in doubt right down to the end, but he got the nod. This is a non-title fight. It is a 10-rounder, and we head into round one.
Non-title bouts means so much to the challenger because a victory in that almost assures the fighter that he will get a title shot, usually against the same guy. I bring to mind Richie Sandoval and Jeff Chandler years ago. Sandoval beat Chandler, then came back, and Chandler won the rematch, but he got the title shot by winning a non-title bout.
Sanchez, if you've seen him before here on ESPN, and he has performed several times, works best as a counterpuncher, and they told us today they'd really like Francis to come to them.
And Francis, especially in this situation, with the other fighter having a title, can't afford to wait. He has to push the pace, even if it plays into Sanchez's hands.
Francis, a 29-year-old, who we mentioned lived in Montreal, now lives in Toronto, originally from Jamaica.
I see Sanchez getting his jab pretty well established here in the opening round.
There is the jab that Davey talked about from Sanchez. He's almost being forced to initiate the action a little bit here in round one. They said this morning, the Francis people, they wanted to make him fight our fight. But when pressed for details, they wouldn't tell us what that was.
I don't think we were cleared for that security-wise.
That was on a need-to-know basis, and apparently we did not need to know.
I think we found out he was a boxer-puncher with power in either hand.
Under a minute left to go in round one. The good thing is, now that the fight's unfolding, we'll find out what that fight plan is.
But what they told us this morning, that was deep.
Sanchez lands the jab after the right hand and gets the jab in again. This is probably a round in which Hector is winning it on the basis of that jab. Francis misses the left hook.
And more of a lead role for Sanchez than we saw in the Patterson fight. Would not be bad for him to show a different kind of a style on this kind of fight. There's no risk for him, really, and he won't be keyed as one thing.
In Francis, while he has 13 KOs in his 21 wins, I don't think he's thought of as a huge puncher. So he's been the distance 12 full rounds, or 12 and then 10 rounds in his last 3 fights. We will be back for round 2. I hope you will be. 9-year-old Barrington Francis in against featherweight champion Hector Acero Sanchez. Or junior featherweight, I should say. He is fighting as a featherweight this evening. It is a non-title fight. That's why he's fighting a little above the weight.
And a pretty good indication of the Acero Sanchez jab. A significant percentage for him. And for a counterpuncher, an excellent way to start a fight.
This one is scheduled for 10. Sanchez's WBC junior featherweight title is not on the line. We've seen Sanchez 3 times here on ESPN. He lost to Frank Toledo, and before that had a draw with Eddie Croft in New York that almost everyone in the arena thought he won.
Those close calls even out. And he got the nod with Patterson.
He did, in a very close fight that really could have gone either way.
And a gambling style against Patterson, trying to win it in a counter-punching mode. He succeeded, but it is probably the biggest gamble style-wise of anything out there.
About halfway through round 2, and there's Sanchez going to the body. They said to Francis in between rounds, you have to go to the body, and he hasn't done that yet. There he goes for it.
Really hasn't found his sink yet. Based on reputation, it seems like he's a little surprised about the lead being taken here by Sanchez.
Sanchez missing with a couple of combinations, but there's the jab, and for Hector, that's been a very fine weapon.
And he did show the right hand, even though he missed when Francis came forward. Still gave Francis something to think about coming in.
And defensively, if you have not seen Sanchez fight before, he's absolutely a master. I mean, very few fighters in boxing today are as good at avoiding, slipping, blocking punches.
And so many things you really can't teach. You see the subtle head movement, slip little angles, mini angles. You cannot teach a fighter that. That just comes.
There's the jab again by Sanchez as he continues to move. Hector Acero Sanchez is 24 years old. He looks about 16, doesn't he? He's got that baby face.
It is. Maybe he is 16.
He's lying to us.
If he doesn't drive home, we'll know there's a problem.
You're absolutely correct. That's why you're an investigative reporter. We end round 2. We'll be back with more of this journalism in a moment.
The jab of Sanchez looks for an opening, gets it in, and then gets out.
We head into round 3. This one is scheduled for 10. Hector Acero Sanchez, the WBC Junior Featherweight Champion in the white trunks. In the black, it's Barrington Francis. It's a non-title tilt. And you know, you talk about the right hand of Sanchez, which we haven't seen much of. That was the one that was injured against Patterson. It was in a cast for 3 weeks. Had some ligament stretch underneath the knuckle. Now, they say it's okay. We haven't seen that punch much.
You wonder, and they say he was able to cut loose in sparring. Ooh, there's a good example of it.
He heard us, and so he threw 2 hard right hands. In round 2, pretty close.
A slight edge, perhaps, for Acero Sanchez, just seeming to be more accurate and more appropriate with his shots. We're waiting for Francis to unload here.
Some very good right hands from Sanchez to send a message to our friend north of the border that he's got some power.
And some pretty good movement on the inside by Sanchez as well. After he throws his shot, you'll see him square up, then you'll see him off to the side. He doesn't stay in one place very long. And Francis will have to time one of those adjustments that Sanchez is making if he wants to land a big shot. And I think because of the angles that Sanchez is showing, Francis has been slow to get it going.
Again, the right hand gets there from Sanchez. They say that fighters will go one of 2 ways. They'll either become a 50% better fighter by being champion, or they'll get complacent. It looks like Sanchez is going in the better direction.
He's trying to add more into his game. Not just the counter-punching you saw against Patterson, but also here in a non-title fight, he could look lethargic if he wanted to, but he's showing some hunger and trying to have good technique.
Under a minute left to go in round 3. The hook gets there. Francis misses, but gets there with his own hook. Well, you better take what you can get against Sanchez because you miss so many punches.
And you see a good example of it there. Francis getting in about 1 out of 8. It was a strong left hook, but a low percentage.
And remember how well you saw the fight Sanchez fought off the ropes against Eddie Croft. He just picked him apart, and he's doing it again here against Francis. Now he tries to lure Francis in again so he can counterpunch him. Well, round 3, an excellent round for Hector Acero Sanchez. He shows you why he became a champion. Well, Barrington Francis will go back to the corner and try and regroup for round 4. Bushkill, Pennsylvania. And if you're looking for college football news, and views, this is where you're going to find it. College Game Day, live from Lincoln, Nebraska, where Nebraska and Colorado will be going at it. Chris Fowler, Lee Corso, and Craig James will have everything you need to know at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on College Game Day. It's college football right here on ESPN. That's Hector Acero Sanchez, who has a championship that he won in the ring, not with the pollsters. Although in boxing, you never know, do you?
The only safe place is in the ring as far as that's concerned. The angle shows you the look of a man in control, too, so far in this fight.
Barrington Francis in the black trunks has had lots of trouble hitting Hector Sanchez, missing again with the right hand and trying to go to the body, which they told him to do, but he's had trouble doing it.
So far, Francis has been the straight man in this routine, and the punchlines are all going to Sanchez. He's really got Francis measured.
Yeah, that's for sure. Now, Francis last fought in July against Victorio Salvatore. He beat him, a TKO in 10-1, the Canadian Featherweight title. But he was inactive, only had one fight in 1993 against Billy Hardy. He took a year off, literally just to regroup after he lost to Hardy and had lost to Pete Talifero.
You see fighters get discouraged after a couple of tough losses. These were back-to-back losses, which always send a big message and force some kind of a regrouping. Still, that was a long time to take off.
Both matches that Francis felt he won, but didn't get the decision. There's the right again by Sanchez.
Sanchez loops his left hand out, and then when he backs up away, he does it in such a way he's not backing straight up, but he's still getting out of the way of his opponent's power shot, and yet keeping himself on balance. That's a very subtle art he's been able to perfect here.
After Sanchez beat Tracy Harris Patterson, they were going to give him a rest. 3 days later, his guys were in the gym, and who did they find there? Sanchez.
Yeah, he rested for a weekend. That was about it.
And he had a hurt right hand, too. Very dedicated fighter. Good right hand by Sanchez. He is having his way even on the inside against Francis.
Very patient fighter, too.
Dave, doesn't he remind you a little bit? Isn't he a smaller version of Wilfred Benitez to you?
Certainly is, with all the way he can get inside, show so many different looks. Elusive, he's got some moves. You know he had to study Benitez.
So, with only a half-minute left here in round 4, it's been a frustrating evening for Barrington Francis, who is trying hard, but is finding Sanchez a very elusive and difficult target to hit. Well, round 4 is just about history, and Hector likes the way things are going.
Gets here first in the defense. He slips the, lands the shot. Now look at the hips. He turns. He's at another angle already. And all of that instinctive and happening very quickly.
Excellent replay, great description, and I'll tell you what, that is this fight in microcosm. We are into round 5.
He has too many weapons. He knows the floor. And take a look at his stance, too, as he leans forward off that front leg. It's such a wide gate. He can go anywhere. He can go back, he can go to the side, and his balance is perfect.
Headed toward the halfway point in this bout, and Hector Acero Sanchez having things his own way. Barrington Francis, an engaging and interesting guy, has an interesting side profession. He's a professional chef in Toronto, and his wife is a pastry chef working at North 44 Restaurant in Toronto, one of the more famous eateries there.
Tom Cruise has been known to frequent that place.
Yes, he has.
2 cooks in the family.
That's a tough one.
And you know why it doesn't clash? Because she does the desserts, he does the dinners.
I knew there was a good reason.
And a big shutout going so far for Acero Sanchez. Francis has been there trying to make this a fight.
He is making an effort. They're very vociferous in his corner, trying to tell him to get inside. But the problem is, when you're in against Sanchez, it's just hard to hit him.
And he can open up and try to gamble here, but he's been getting hit with shots when he does that. Sanchez knows, as these fighters do, that when the opponent is charging, if you stand up at that point and take it away from him, he will not come back that way too often in the course of a fight.
Sanchez is due to have another non-title fight and then will defend against Julio Gervasio, an excellent fighter, his #1 contender. That on January 28th, probably in Atlantic City.
He took the non-title bout just to stay sharp.
Now, you know, his hands are low, Sanchez. His hands are at his waist. And here's a pretty quick-handed fighter, and he can't hit him.
Francis is fast. They should give awards out for the amount of punches you can make the other guy miss.
Good left hook by Acero Sanchez. You know, he would be right up there. Remember Michael Nunn in his heyday as a middleweight?
Could not touch him.
Man, he made everybody miss. Again, Francis getting mostly air. We're at the halfway point. It's a struggle for Barrington Francis. We'll be back.
From slightly below the ring, let's take a look at the air up there. Francis missing everything. The head movement there by Sanchez. Hey, there has to be a limit on how many you can miss in a row. That is frustration spelled out in front.
We go into round 6. I think he nicked him on one of those, though. I got to give Barrington Francis some credit. But again, he gets Sanchez against the ropes and can't get the job done.
Francis is hoping that just one of them gets in, and it's the right one during this fight.
And he did land a couple of good left hooks earlier, Francis, but nothing that would do any serious damage. We're in round 6. I'm Al Bernstein along with Dave Bontempo. We're delighted you joined us. No, it's not. You don't have to adjust your set. I know we were just with you a couple of nights ago, but just when you thought it was safe to come up, we're back.
This is the Tuxedo Tour. And Sanchez with a monster's edge there. More than double, and that's a pretty good story of this fight here. Francis, though, being cooperative, trying to make it a fight.
Boy, is he ever. And there he goes to the body. They want Francis to go to the body more, and he might land more if he set those up to the body.
No matter what he takes to get inside, it might be worth it.
Well, they've been begging Francis to go to the body more. He's just having a hard time doing it. Big left hook sends him down.
And that's why. He was off balance, and then he also got tagged.
Takes the mandatory 8 count. See if Sanchez can get to him again. Lots of time left in this round.
Sanchez turning into one of the finer counter-punchers we've seen. Doing it again. Leading, and then when his opponent comes to him, landing the knockdown flurry.
That left hook was indeed a counterpunch. The last guy to get Francis out was Robert Dickey, who TKO'd him in the 10th round in Scotland in 1990.
Well, Francis must think now, so much for that brilliant idea. He wants to get to the body, but he paid a huge price for getting inside there. That's because he didn't jab his way inside.
Well, just about half a minute left to go in round 6, a round in which Barrington Francis has been sent down from a left hook of Hector Acero Sanchez. And so far, Sanchez is pitching a shutout. No doubt about that. Well, round 6 will go in the books. It will be a 2-point round for Sanchez. Like all the other ones, he won it convincing.
Both punches to the body. Both punches to the body and back to the head quick. Got me? Go ahead. Go and do it.
you see there the good look at the knockdown. The right hand, the left hook behind it. As Francis is coming in, he pays. Sanchez very patient, waits for the miss, and then makes his opponent pay. And you see the off-balance stance by Francis as he came in. When he missed, he was not squared up, and so he was prone to that shot.
You can't do that, all right? You can't do that.
Hector Acero Sanchez, as you look into his corner, putting it all together tonight. This is about as fine a performance as they would have wanted from him, showing no signs of complacency, even though it's a non-title bout. And as we head into round 7, Barrington Francis has got to be thinking to himself, what did I get myself into here in Pennsylvania?
I've thrown all these shots. I've taken this opportunity, but I did not catch this guy on an off night.
We're in round 7. That's Hector Acero Sanchez in the white trunks, the WBC Junior Featherweight Champion, and Barrington Francis in the black trunks, who is taking him on in this non-title bout. And you see how things have gone so far.
And this is all accuracy. They've thrown about the same amount of punches, but it's 2-1 for Sanchez as far as the landing. And Francis has done a lot of things that would win him other fights on other nights. He's cut off the ring. He's been active. He's been near targeted with his jab, but he's just in with too tough a guy.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Dave. There are other fighters out there that Francis would beat on this night. Sanchez is not one of them. It's scheduled for 10, and our main event, or co-main event, I should say, later on this season, which should be a good one, Harold Warren and Fernando Rodriguez, a couple of junior lightweights. They keep telling Francis to go to the body, and I'm sure he intends to, but that head always looks like such an inviting target with Sanchez with the hands down.
Plus, he has to do the work of getting inside to do some damage, jabbing his way in, and the wild miss right there. Sanchez will not cooperate for Barrington Francis. He will not adjust his style. He will not open up to try to make it easier for Francis. He'll get his punches in, he'll go back, and have systematic movement on the floor. He has been in a zone from the beginning of this fight.
In for Sanchez as he goes low, which is an effective move for him, just looking to load up with the right and landing just about every jab he throws against Francis.
So far, this sure makes Tracy Harris Patterson's effort against him look a lot better.
Well, yeah, and of course Patterson, the champion, and some thought the best junior featherweight out there, he and Kennedy McKinney, they both lost their titles within a week of each other.
After they were clamoring for a unification fight.
Shows you, like most big boxing fights, you better make them quick. They always wait a little too long, don't they? Well, round 7 is just about over, and it is a mere of the last 6. Hector Acero Sanchez with a boxing clinic. We'll be back.
Another sampling of vintage Sanchez. The right hand as he's moving to the left, and then shows the upper head movement and freezes Francis with his movement.
We head into round 8. It is scheduled for 10. Barrington Francis in the black trunks from Toronto, Canada, who came into this bout with a very respectable 21-5-4 record. Hector Acero Sanchez 32-2. They're featherweights, although normally Hector Acero Sanchez is a junior featherweight and has a WBC title in that weight division. Oh, look at that. Talk about people missing punches.
That's an astoundingly low percentage for a fighter who is in a lightweight class. You can understand maybe a heavyweight missing all those punches, but accuracy is usually the name of the game with the lower fighters.
And Sanchez well over 50% with the jab. In the 6th round, Francis was down. It's the only knockdown of the fight. Probably the only time anyone's really been hurt in this fight. Sanchez has never been in any trouble. He's barely been hit.
Well, we're seeing the glorification of defense here, the glorification of reflexes. And when you think of so many of the greats, Leonard, Hearns, Ali, all tremendous reflexes, great hand-to-eye coordination. Not necessarily putting him there yet, but the skills as far as the defense has been pretty impressive.
Francis missing again with the hook. Needs to double up with the hook to the head, to the body and the head, but it's easier said than done. It's easy for us to say it outside the ring. And yeah, if you're looking at that picture in the background there, that was Larry Holmes. You caught a glimpse of. We're gonna have a chat with Larry a little bit later. I didn't want people to go crazy wondering if he was here.
The question is now officially answered.
And is that De Niro in the third? No, I don't think so. Round 8, less than a minute left to go. And it has been Sanchez just controlling things from the beginning of the bell to the end, as he has in every single round. And you know, Nelson Rodriguez, his manager, said to us, I saw a tape of Francis. If he doesn't do better than he did in his loss to Pete Talifero, my guy's going to win every round. And guess what? He has.
And it's a pretty prophetic statement he gave us this morning. And you'll rarely see a fight in which one boxer is missing so wildly. Not just missing, but missing big.
We'll be back for round 9. Don't go anywhere. Round 9, that's Barrington Francis coming out to face the WBC Junior Featherweight Champ, Hector Acero Sanchez. Francis has had a tough night. If you're joining us late, Francis was down in the 6th round. He has lost virtually every round. Not virtually. I'm sure he's lost every round of this fight. And hey, just as I speak, you see Dave's scorecard.
Right on there. A tremendous effort so far for Sanchez, and especially defensively, he's been in total control.
This is one of the few blowouts we've had in a long, long time on the show. We have been on a roll with fights.
Tapia a couple weeks ago. The fight's Wednesday night.
Tony Marshall in a great fight a couple of weeks ago. And the night before last, James Hughes and Anthony Stevens was special. Hughes winning on a TKO in the 12th round, I believe.
And the fighters who came in between them with 14 losses, you throw the records out. When you know how to make the competitive matches, they gave a very good effort for the USBA title.
In this one, Hector Sanchez has just had too much for Francis. And it's not that Francis hasn't tried. We've talked about him throughout this bout. He's made a good effort. Sanchez has just been too clever for him.
And by Francis trying so hard, he has brought out the best in Sanchez.
There's a jab getting in by Barrington Francis, one of the few. Joe Saucy separates the two fighters. We're in Fernwood Resorts here in Bushkill, Pennsylvania, middle of the Poconos. Just a drive from where you live. A few hours, but a drive.
Not far from Atlantic City, and my mother in Florham Park, New Jersey. This is a big area. We always had family come up and see them up here. The good fights.
You paid a night. You're a good son. You paid her a visit last night.
I have to do that. Coming in from where we were.
Proud of you. Well, your mother called me the other day, and she said, "Dave, he never calls, he never writes." That was nice of him.
So you were the good altar son then.
Yeah, that's right. Hector Sanchez just having his way here. I mean, he is dominating this 9th round. Half a minute left to go here in the 9th round. And Hector Acero Sanchez continues to box effectively and have things his own way against Barrington Francis. Good right hand by Sanchez. So we'll be back for the 10th round, and Barrington Francis needs a miracle to pull this one out. But now, there's the Junior Featherweight Champion, and that's his opponent for this evening, Barrington Francis. Hector Acero Sanchez in the white trunks. Francis is in the black trunks. Sanchez's title is not on the line. He's actually fighting a little over the weight as a featherweight. But even if it were on the line, he would have nothing to worry about tonight. He has dominated Francis.
This has been a paint job worthy of 3 coats. Another numerical look at this with Sanchez, almost 100-punch edge just in the jabs.
17% landing by Francis,
who's thrown more jabs in this fight than Sanchez.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, that really is intriguing when you think about it.
How do you throw less and land 100 more?
That's amazing.
With a fighter this quick, an opponent almost has to start a flurry by missing. In this case, Francis could go over the top with a shot, because every time he does that, Sanchez leans forward and he's down. It would open a shot at an uppercut.
It could actually be a strategic ploy to miss.
It's late in the fight for him now, but he's missed anyway throughout this fight.
You might as well use it as a ploy. Under 2 minutes left to go in this fight, and there is absolutely no doubt about who's going to be the winner unless Barrington Francis comes up with something really dramatic here. Francis landing a right hand to the side of the head of Sanchez. Sanchez, a 24-year-old who would appear to have quite a future in boxing, but he's going to have a very tough defense in January against Julio Gervasio, the #1 contender. It'll be January 28th in Atlantic City. If he gets by that one, Dave, he could have himself quite a reign in that division.
That's a key one for him to get past, and I don't think he'll have the luxury of waging this kind of a fight in that one.
Champion, and you can make people come to you, which is exactly the style that he wants to fight, it'll play right into his hands.
Especially as his confidence goes up every time he defeats somebody with that style.
It's been a pretty easy bout for Joe Salsi. There hasn't been too much holding and very few tactics that would even smack of any illegalities. It's just astonishing to me how many punches Francis has ended up missing in this bout.
Somebody who's usually a pretty good craftsman, and that's where it comes in. Well, the guy with 21 wins, and he's missing like that.
He will go back to Toronto after a frustrating evening here in Pennsylvania. Certainly a sound effort on his part, but Sanchez was simply too much, especially in the defensive department. Well, that'll do it. Hector Acero Sanchez will surely get himself a win. He punctuated this 10-round fight with a 6th-round knockdown of Barrington Francis, and they hold him aloft, and why not? Well, following us, the Breeders' Crown Harness Racing show. I go to the track, I always take Davey V with me. He knows what he's talking about. And tonight, Hector Acero Sanchez knew what he was talking about inside that ring. This man, Barrington Francis, had all kinds of trouble getting near him.
Not only could he not get near him, but then Sanchez landed 62% of his jabs throughout the fight.
Oh, my.
A tough double combination for him to overcome.
That is a spectacular effort on the part of Sanchez. Michael Buffer will tell us all about it. Let's go in the center of the ring.
Ladies and gentlemen, we go to the scorecards here at the Fernwood Resort. James Condon scores the bout 100-89. Jackie Castellani scores at 97-92. And Bernard Bruni scores at 100-89 for the winner by unanimous decision, Hector Acero Sanchez.
A shutout on all the scorecards. Hector Acero Sanchez wins this non-title tilt. He looked good in the process. Let's look at some results as we go to break. Three-quarters of the punches he threw. That's extraordinary. Let's go up to Dave Bontempo, who has Hector with him.
Thank you, Al, and I'm here with Hector and Nelson Fernandez, his translator. Hector, is that the best defensive effort you've ever given?
¿Eso ha sido la mejor defensa que tú has tenido en una noche?
No, claro que no. Primero, antes que nada, gracias a Dios. Y luego, gracias a ESPN por apoyarme y televisar toda mi pelea.
No, he says, of course not. But before that, he wants to thank God and thank ESPN for this fight.
When did he make somebody miss more than 75%?
¿Cuándo es que tú has hecho fallar una persona el 75% de los puños que te tiraron?
Lo he hecho varias veces, no es primera vez, varias veces lo he hecho. Esta pelea no me sorprende porque me preparé no para noquear, me preparé para hacer una pelea de exhibición, para que el mundo vea en mi patria de que tienen un buen campeón.
I have done that in the past, and this is not the first time you're going to see it or the last time. We were prepared for this fight to go 10 rounds, and with 10 rounds, we're going to show the world that we have a champion for a long time.
How are you better since you've been a champion now?
¿Cómo tú te sientes ahora que tú eres campeón?
Claro que me siento bastante diferente. Ahora tengo que mostrar mi supremacía como campeón. Y la voy a demostrar y la voy a seguir manteniendo. Me siento como campeón y la gente me trata como campeón. Es bastante diferente a no ser campeón.
It's a lot different now being champ. People treat you different. People recognize you. But I just want to show the world again that I'm going to stick around for a long time as champion.
Okay, what are your immediate goals? Who would you like to fight?
¿A quién te gustaría pelear? ¿Con quién tú te gustaría pelearte?
Ahora mismo, lo que siempre he pedido, quiero unificar un título con Wilfredo Vázquez.
What I always wanted to do, the unification of my title with Wilfredo Vázquez from the WBA.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's the victory for Hector Acero Sanchez on this evening. Very big in the Dominican Republic, ESPN International carrying it. And before we go to break, let's take a look at some results.